Welcome to Spin the Wheel. I'm your host, Wheelchair21, and today we are on episode 11. On today's episode, we will be talking about a little bit of the Tokusatsu news that has come out, as well as we're going to be looking at the Stuff I Binge, part, I think, 6, 7, and we're going to be doing part 2 of anime and cartoons. So, first off, let's see the news. I think the best way to start is we finally got the Godzilla anime trailer released, and it looks pretty cool. And we got to see that the world will have a crap ton of new original like kaiju. They're gonna look like dinosaurs, dragons, wyverns, and one of them called Servrum is one of these like wyvern-like creatures that are going to be seen throughout the series. There's also this weird illusion or confirmation that Godzilla has actually obtained an EMP like burst kind of ability, which is similar to the Muto. I don't know how definite that is, but that's supposedly something that a lot of fans have been speculating from seeing the trailer, or at least been talked about in interviews due to the release of this trailer. It's kind of interesting. I don't know what's really going on, but it's something that I look forward to seeing. I mean, visually, it's not the best. I don't really like the animation style. I think that's just the style of Polygon Pictures. But I think I'll still enjoy the movie nevertheless because it's a bit of CG, it's a bit of 2D. It's like kind of weird, different. I feel like they're the guys who did the Arbiter, I think, storyline in the Halo Legends movie. Like it just kind of feels reminiscent of that to some regards. So I feel like I'm still going to enjoy it. It's just gonna be different, weird, odd. Who knows? Then the next piece of news is actually the City Shrouded in Shadow video game. We got a full trailer to it where it actually teases a brand new aesthetic to the game, or not aesthetic, but that there might be more kaiju in the game than intended, due to the fact that at the very end of the teaser trailer, there's a shadowed out figure of a bird swooping down upon them, and this bird like creature is obviously the Gauss. I mean, you can literally just profile it of the silhouette of the creature coming down on them. It's a goddamn Gauss, which means we probably have the entire Gamera trilogy, as well as there's probably hints that there's probably more Godzilla guys, like other Toho kaiju, maybe Rodan, Mothra hidden in the game just right now, as well as there could be stuff from, Ultraman. We could have like Gamora, Red King. We could have stuff from Ultra 7. Who knows what's really in this game? But there, from this trailer alone, it says to be continued, and I'm guessing there's going to be an additional full trailer coming out more about how the gameplay actually works, because what we've seen from it was mostly cutscenes and interactions between characters, and sort of how like some of the dialogue is going to split where you can choose what you're going to say or do. But overall, I love it. The game itself, the graphics aren't that great, but for what they're doing with all the properties at hand, I can't really expect more out of them, because I feel like just getting the licensing is for all these properties and characters is kind of a giant like thing that will probably hinder the production of the game in every factor which way from Sunday, from when it actually will release in Japan. There's still no news if we're going to get a retail release in North America or internationally, and I hope we do. I just think that the issue will be licensing. Even though I want this game, I've been wanting like a kaiju survival game for a long ass time, as well as I would want a game where you can actually like play as like the military trying to stop the kaiju, not like that RPG game that was released like on the Sega, one of the Sega systems, or it was Nintendo in Japan. But I mean like an actual real like the Earth's Defense Force games, but with actual real name brand kaiju's. Godzilla, Gamera, Ultra Kaiju. That shit would be amazing, personally. The final piece of news is actually something that everyone knows by now, and that's Crunchyroll is simulcasting Ultraman Geed. They literally waited till the last minute, pretty much, just like last year with Ultraman Orb. I'm kind of not happy with that aesthetic in some regards, is that nowadays, Crunchyroll, when they announce their simulcasts, it usually occurs within a couple of hours before the series even airs in Japan, or right as it's airing in Japan. And I like when some of like its anime titles, when they say, "Oh, this is gonna be joining our list for the fall," that they're like, "Hey, you know about it in advance. You know what days they're gonna air. at times it's going to air Pacific time, which you then can convert to Eastern time. Whereas when it was with Geed, they were like, hey, this is literally happening in an hour. And in the meantime, you can go watch the pilot episode 0 that Subaraya originally posted on their YouTube channel, Raw. We now have it subbed, unlike last year's previous like Ultraman, where we weren't allowed to get episode 0, which gives you a sneak peek and look at what's going on and what these, forms and abilities and your cast of characters do. Which was actually pretty good that we got it this time around. I don't remember, like I say, it ever happening for X, Orb, and the other series, and that's what makes Geed's release right now a little bit better. However, for the actual first episode, I'm very indifferent on this premiere. I don't want to go into too much depth because I'm already writing a review for it at HeroClub.com, but all I can say is what I've already said to other people who've asked me in my opinion. It's weaker than X and Orb's premiere, but it's stronger than both seasons of Ginga and Ginga S in a sense. Like, those seasons feel weaker in comparison to Geed's premiere. So, right now, I'm hoping that the potential of what they're trying to promote in the series, of Geed being Belial's son, will outshine this rocky kind of start. A lot of people say the flaw in this episode was highly due to Koichi Sakamoto's directorial style. And honestly, when he's a director, I personally see him as a good action director. As for like a full on director, like for your core common movie, he does have a lot of issues. Like, his action is great. It's his actual directing of like the entire project that kind of gets a little awry. Like, I just prefer him as, what is it, the second unit director, where he's just doing all of the actual fight scenes and the main like real tokusatsu aspects of like the guys in the suits and whatnot. As for, full control over the projects, sometimes I'm indifferent. It really just depends on how the results of the show are, or like how I, take to the show. So now, I think with that, I think we can move on to the, Stuff I Binge, part 6, so we can get all of this out of the way and never look at it again. And I did say that when we would continue on this piece of the Stuff I Binge series, we'd go right into Mobile Suit Gundam. Now, when Gundam aired in North America, we were greeted with Gundam Wing. And I'm actually not really a real diehard fan of Gundam Wing. I liked the mobile suits. I never really liked the show. And I sort of lightened up to the series as I've gotten older, but I've never really found like the love for it that most of North America did. I actually got more interested in I would say, the OVAs that were aired as regular series in North America, which were 0083 and the 08th MS team. Like, those series really hooked me. They were really fascinating. I liked 08th MS team because it treated it like a real war aspect, as well as I liked Stardust Memory because everyone likes to compare it to Top Gun. I see some elements as to why it's compared to Top Gun, and like music videos that people have made in tribute to Highway to the Danger Zone, but overall, it's not as Top Gunny as everyone claims it to be. But I still roll with the joke because it's funny. The original Mobile Suit Gundam series, I actually loved the hell out of it. I don't know why I loved it, but like I still love it as of today. I mean, I think I love Universal Century because it tries to tell a story, and I feel like the one thing I liked about it was as I got older and realized that the original One Year War was a depiction of World War II, and that whole thing that I mentioned last time during the Wonder Woman review is that a lot of people really romanticize World War II as like some great thing, no matter what side you were on, kind of bullcrap at times. That it was like, yeah, this was like a bitch in style to theme it after, like, everyone's favorite World War. I mean, there's only been two of them, but everyone talks about two more than they talk about one, and I don't really understand why. I guess two. It's because two was even bigger, badder, and drove it home. I don't know. I mean, war's not a thing to really talk about and have fun about, but like there's some kind of, like said, there's some kind of aura about it that just drives people to talk about it. I mean, Call of Duty got its start on freaking World War II, and from there, it's had so many sequels. So, I mean, there's something about what happened in World War II that like gets everybody going, ooh, ah, and it's really weird. I think World War II is like the greatest car crash ever because everyone just looks on that war like, damn. So I don't understand it. And I think that's why I think, Universal Century was able to get its foot in the door and be able to lead into having so many sequels and tellings and stories and alternate realities with Wing, with Double O, with G Gundam, and like the Build Fighters thing, which the Build Fighters wasn't about the war aspect, it was more or less just the markability of making the model kits. But like after like 08 MS Team and 0083, which I binge quite often, I actually got addicted to the Zeta New Translation movies more than I did the original Zeta series. And I think that's because the original Zeta series has like a really slow start, then it gets good, then it gets kind of and then it goes back to being just outrageously amazing with all the bad crap that it puts the characters through, that it makes you enjoy it. And then with Zeta Gundam, I think it was just, even though it's a rushed kind of compilation style movie, I enjoyed it because of the new scenes that were added, like the redrawn, reanimated, like updated scenes. Even though there's not that many of them per the movies or throughout the movies, but I enjoyed the changes made, as well as I loved the inclusion of Gax music, as well as other modern day OSTs and tracks inserted into the movies to make them sound like just more modern. And then G Gundam, yeah, I gotta go there. That was like the biggest other Gundam series that a lot of North American fans love. It's more Super Robot than Gundam, but it's fun, it's awesome, and it's goddamn ludicrous. Because who doesn't love Shining Finger? Double O, honestly, I binge that crap a little too much. Season 1 more than Season 2, but overall, like, you can't go wrong with Double O. Build Fighters and Build Fighters Try. Even though Build Fighters is the series we're reviewing right now on the Ninja Talks Gundam, I'm more of a fan of Build Fighters Try. I love it. I prefer its shonen gaming aspect more than I liked the weird, oh, we're kind of like a slice of life telling story kind of bullcrap with characters that are just ass kind of aspect. I think Try does what I thought Build Fighters was going to be since day one, just a giant cash grab, go buy our model kits and build them and pretend to fight them. That's literally what Build Fighters Try is. It's like literally marketing to a T, where Build Fighters is just like, hey, we got these losers here, and we're gonna try to tell a story, but it leads to nothing, and nothing really leads to anything, and you get a giant middle finger of an ending. But hey, somehow the fans feel relieved, so hey, we did our job. Nah, I don't fall for that shit. And then we go to, Gundam's, in quotations, arch rival in North America, even though they're actually like themed rivals, even though the one series doesn't even continue making shows or other stuff. They just make new video games and reissue kits all the time. It's freaking Zoids. I'm a huge stickler for the Zoids series. I love the original Chaotic Century, which we got after New Century Zero with BitCloud and the Liger Zero. So, like, even though we got them in reverse, I still enjoy both series, and I enjoy really the whole canon lore about them. Zoid's Fusers, I didn't really get into because it was such a vast change from the lore and the canon at hand. And Genesis, I didn't even know North America got a dub of it until one day I went to like Toonami Jetstream, and even then I found out it was like heavily edited. So I never have gotten to see Genesis, nor have I really seen Fusers in its entirety. Like, I think the only way I was able to see the entirety of the Fusers dub was due to a friend that was able to locate a website that was redirected to like an Australian streaming service that actually had the entire North American dub on their I guess list of shows that were available to watch, and I got to see it once and once only because I think it was an illegal site because it was taken down soon after I'd finished watching the entire series. So I never got a full grasp of really what happened and what was going on. So for me, I like original Zoids. I like a lot of the lore that was in the video games that we never got to see, and I would actually like to see a story told with what was supposed to happen in the real chaotic century war between the good guys, the bad guys. Like I forget what it was called. It was like the Republic and the Federation or something. Like it was pretty much like the same basic crap that you would see with Mobile Suit Gundam Zeon versus the Federation. But I remember it was like the Empire of Gaius and something. Like, it's been such a while since I've actually sat and watched at least Chaotic Century fully that I can't remember the actual factions' names clearly enough. But I've watched it a lot as a kid. I watched it so many times that, like, I should be able to remember it. But I think what I remember more is really, like, how the stories went and know by the characters. You know, like like, what is it? Van, Lance, Holtz, like those guys. Irvine. Like, I know, like, when you show me a character, I'm like, oh, boom, I know him, I know him, I know him. But when it comes to, like, the factions, I forget the factions. It's really interesting. It's very ludicrous, but nevertheless, like, Zoids, if people have still yet to see it, go find a way to either torrent it or buy an official release, even though the DVDs are hard to come by nowadays. You might actually find them in a used section in your FYE. That's how I managed to get most of Chaotic Century acquired, because the DVDs, even when they came out, were hard to obtain. And the next is like pretty basic. Like, if you were born in the '90s, you're addicted to these shows, either due to Fox Kids or WB11, which is obviously Pokemon and the Digimon franchise. I mean, the series are still long going and long lasting, and now Digimon isn't able to stay strong as well as Pokemon has. But you know, a lot of people still care to love them and enjoy them. Personally, for me, I like Pokemon mostly when 4Kids actually was dubbing it, even though they did do a lot of vast changes, which made it kind of, crappy and ass to a lot of, diehard fans. I still enjoy it. I mostly, in a sense, lost a bit of love for the Pokemon anime after the events of season 5 or 6 here in North America. And I mostly just love 1 through 6, really, all the way up until the end of Johto. I've never really been a fan of Hoenn. I somewhat was a fan of Diamond and Pearl, but I only like the last full-on season or arc of Diamond and Pearl. I didn't really enjoy Black and White, but I did enjoy X and Y and X, Y, and Z. Those seasons were actually some of my favorites thus far since, like I say, the original 6 here in North America. As for Sun and Moon, I barely touched it. And for the new Pokemon movie, I Choose You, I think it's a load of trash. I think it's garbage. And I think it's a poorly retelling of what allegedly happened in season 1 to like season 4. I don't understand why they need to vastly retcon a lot of the events. I don't know why they can't just treat it like a real anniversary movie. And so I'm a little disgruntled by these changes. Whereas with Digimon, I actually like most of the seasons, but I'm more akin to watching some actually subbed over than dubbed. And it's honestly due to the fact that when I watch the original Digimon series or Digimon Adventure, I prefer it dubbed. Not just because it's nostalgia, but when I've watched Digimon Adventure subbed, the kids are assholes. They're like real assholes, and I hate the OST. For some reason, the reuse of the Mask Rider and VR Troopers tracks made the original Digimon series really good. And then when you get to Digimon Season 2, I like both uh, dubbed and subbed because it's an incredible season due to both scores that were composed for each of the series. Like, you had the American songs that were awesome and cool that you could get on the Digimon movie soundtrack, and then when you watch Digimon Adventure 02, you had all these like cool songs sung by Koji Wada, and I mean, I love that first opening. I think for Digimon Adventure 2, where it's Target, because that thing is amazing. I'm pretty sure they had two different openings for that series, but I just love the hell out of Target. It's like my favorite. Tamers, this is a weird thing. I like the voice actors and who they chose for the dub of Tamers, but I actually prefer watching Tamers subbed. I don't know why, but I find Tamers to be very dry and boring at times. But when I watch Tamers subbed, the added OSTs where they actually had more additional insert songs for every type of evolution out there in that series helped me stay attuned to the action, because when they went from Tamer season 2 to Tamers in America, they took a lot of the original music from 1 and 2 and didn't want to reuse them because there was no real connection to season 3, except that in that universe, season 1 and season 2 are just a show and Digimon are toys and card games, etc., so on and so forth. So they wanted to, like, I guess, differentiate itself rather than just using the music over and over again, which I think actually hurt some of the scenes where music was needed, like really good, like OSTs were needed, and that's why I prefer the actual sub versus dub in that case. Frontier, I think I like both. I don't hate either, and same goes for Sabers. Honestly, though, if anyone was to ask me what are my like top freaking Digimon series, it would be Sabers, then Adventure Zero Two, then Frontier. Like those are my top three, and that's all I can honestly say is that when it comes to a lot of the animes that really hooked kids back in the '90s, Gundam, Zoids, Pokemon, Digimon, those are like some of the few that really got people really into it and got them like really hooked other than Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon. I mean, there's others out there that were actually dubbed by 4Kids, but the other 4Kids dubs just never actually hooked me that well. I think there were only two or three 4Kids anime dubs that I liked, and they were mostly Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon. And other than that, that was just about that. Whereas Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in the segment for the next Stuff I Binge. It will pretty much be like our leading tip-off. I guess that's a good way to segue into that episode. So, for those of you listening and enjoying this episode, don't forget to leave a like here if you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're listening it over on SoundCloud, give it, a like, a thumbs up, or add to your favorites, or whatever hell goes on over there. Don't forget to subscribe to me on both accounts, SoundCloud or YouTube, as well as check me out over at HeroClub.com and just go follow Hero Club on its social media accounts. Anyways, like I said, I'll see you all next week, and maybe, we might have a Spider-Man Homecoming review too. Who knows?